There it go. There it goes. Hold up. There it goes. Why does this light make me look Dominican? What is wrong with this light? Oh, the game. Not Triple H, wrong channel, but the game. I was listening to an interview. One of my favorite independent minds in hip hop, JT the Bigger Figure, whatever that means. And I was watching his No Jumper interview, which is an excellent interview. If you're independent, or you want to start your own business or your own label, whatever it is, not just music, but just starting your own independent anything, you should watch that JT the Bigger Figure interview on No Jumper, because he gives a lot of information, a lot of jewels. But there's a point of the video where he's talking about the game, and he mentions how there was when Death Row fell to shambles in 96, 97, after Tupac passed, Suge went to prison, everybody left. The West Coast didn't have like a major number one artist. Dr. Dre, eventually he did 2001, but even 2001 being huge, people will always see Dr. Dre as being more of a producer than an MC. And, you had Snoop, but Snoop was at No Limit. He went back to LA at some point. Corrupt was never really the same. I mean, he had the double album in 98. He had the calling out names in 99, the DMX beef. But I prefer Corrupt in like 92, 92, 93, 94, 95. And then the big West Coast artists after Death Row was kind of Exhibit. Exhibit had monstrous songs. And yes, I understand Exhibit's like from Detroit or New Mexico, but it don't matter. In hip hop, it's not so much where you're from, it's where you're repping. Like Eminem, he's from Kansas, but he's been screaming Detroit. You don't say, oh, he's from Kansas. It's like, it's the rock him is not where you're from, it's where you're at, So, and Exhibit, he was with Alcoholics. He represented California. He represented the West Coast. And there was the times when he had some of the biggest records. Exhibit is so underrated, man. He had monstrous songs. Multiply, X, Get Your Walk On. He got classic records. Exhibit got the best rap video ever. What You See Is What You Get. 10 mic video. That is the best rap video ever. Ever. But, the West Coast didn't have like a number one superstar rapper, but after Death Row, but, the East Coast did. Biggie was still alive. And then when Biggie passed in 98, DMX is, Jay-Z. You still had Nas, you had Big Pun, New York, they kept producing. Nori was on fire in 98. Oh my God. You still had LL. And then, into the 2000s, number one, Midwest, the two top Midwest as far as popularity and sales was Eminem and Nelly. So, the Midwest had their two mainstream rappers or whatever the case. But, then you had 50 Cent who blew up in 02, 03. But the West Coast didn't have anything. And it seemed like the further time went on, the more they lacked a number one face. You still had, Too Short and E40, Snoop and Dre. You still had West Coast artists, but you didn't have the lead, like number one major star type artist. And then the Game developed after he was rapping like Shine forever. And he had the documentary, he had his Monster Records. So Game was in the position of, okay, you're clearly the number one rapper in the West Coast, and Game was clearly the number one West Coast rapper until Kendrick Lamar with Good Kid, Mad City. And but in Game's reign, let's say Game's reign was from, let's say 04 to 2011 was Game as the number one West Coast rapper. JT the Bigger Figure made a great point. He said Game got in that position, but he failed to do what many others in that position did, which is Game never elevated another rapper. He never elevated another movement. When and not every number one rapper did that, because who did LL put on? But a lot of rappers who get that position, they put other people on. 50 Cent. I have a lot of complaints about him, but 50 Cent might have did it better than any rapper when it comes to making other people stars, because when 50 Cent came out, he was screaming G-Unit every 3 seconds. So even if you didn't know what G-Unit was, what the hell did the G stand for? You didn't know who it was, but you knew what it was because you kept hearing it. And then he introduced Tony Ayo and Lloyd Banks and Young Buck and then Game and Olivia. So that's what you're supposed to do. When you're in the spotlight, you should elevate other people. It helps your lasting power. A lot of people don't understand this. A lot of rappers are selfish. They want all the spotlight, but they don't realize if you make other people hot, it'll make you hotter for longer. 50 Cent understood this. It makes your movement stronger when people know your crew. For example, Meek Mill, another one like Game. Meek Mill did not elevate nobody. Meek Mill screaming Dream Chasers for 10 years. Name me three Dream Chasers, please. Name me a Dream Chaser whose album you were looking forward to. He elevated nobody. So that's why his movement don't matter anymore. Game was the same way. He had Black Wall Street. Okay, name me one person in Black Wall Street. Name me one person in Black Wall Street that went gold or platinum or had a song you liked that you kept listening. Who? He didn't elevate anybody. Game was a bit of a sensitive egomaniac. And I think he did want 50 Cent's position, but you have to understand something. On the West Coast, he was 50 Cent. On the East Coast, the hottest thing was 50 in 03, 04, 05. The hottest thing was 50 Cent in the East Coast and in hip hop, period. But let's just talk territory. In the West Coast, Game was the #1 West Coast rapper. So to the West, he's 50 Cent because he's their #1. The problem is he didn't learn from 50 Cent, meaning you have your crew, but you have to elevate people. And if you don't have someone to elevate, you need to find someone. He didn't elevate Kendrick Lamar later. He worked with him, he shouted him out, but that he didn't elevate him. He didn't bring him out. He wasn't a representation of Game's movement. So that is a big flaw in Game's career, and I think that hurt Game because Game, he comes off a lot of times as sensitive, and he wants to have the attention, but he doesn't even know how to build it and maintain it. If he had built up Black Wall Street, because I remember back then, I grew up in this time. I remember thinking Black Wall Street. Okay, what's their name? You knew Tony Yayo, you knew Young Buck, you knew Lloyd Banks, and when they rapped, they were fire. Young Buck was a 5-mic MC. Lloyd Banks, 5-mic MC. Tony Yayo was very good in his role. He had some fire. Who was the 3 top people in Black Wall Street? Nobody knows. Then he destroys, he destroys his union with 50 Cent, and then Dr. Dre and them kind of were fed up with Game, so they moved him off Interscope to Geffen, but he went on Geffen and he was still successful. That Doctor's Advocate album was fire. Without Dr. Dre, it was a bunch of Dre sounding beats, but he had I think Scott Storch was on there, and Dr. Dre's a beat thief, we know this, but or a credit thief rather. Just Blaze is the beat thief, but ask Kanye, ask Buckshot Shorty. I gotta re-upload that Just Blaze beat thief video. My God, but that was a big flaw of Game because when you're in that position of being a top guy, part of your responsibility should be to build. Hip hop should not be a thing where, no, it's just me getting everything. Like, no, hip hop is supposed to be a culture. You people, okay, in a culture, you share, you elevate, you build, you teach, you destroy. Destroy in a positive way. He destroyed in a negative way. So this was a big flaw of the Game. And JT, the bigger figure, was mentioning this to the point where a lot of people that helped Game, because no one gets to where they are alone. Eminem did not get to where he is by himself. He needed Benzino to put him in the Source magazine to highlight him. A lot of people, first time ever seeing Eminem was his article in the Source magazine in '98. Eminem needed a Dr. Dre. He needed Mailman, Hitman, the people who work, the Bass Brothers, whatever their name. Everyone needs people. But stupid ass fans, they have this idea of, no, the person I like, they would have been successful no matter what. That's not how life works. In life, no one becomes successful by themselves. That's foolishness. That's a great fantasy that you groupies have. 50 Cent needed people. Game needed people, but Game, he burnt every bridge. He's on Drink Champ saying Kanye did more for me in 4 days than Dr. Dre did for 15 years. That's an absurd statement. That's an absurd statement. He's known for burning every damn bridge. Very bipolar, very emotional. He was drunk as hell at verses. Blood, 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 blood. Oh, God. You can't trust a grown man who gets a butterfly tattoo. Or a ice cream tattoo. Did I say Gucci Mane? Oh, man, you think Pooh Shiesty gonna get out? Oh, brr. Oh, my God. Gucci Mane snitched. Brr. Oh, no. You think Pooh Shiesty gonna get out? No, I'm not gonna review his album. Okay, this channel is about real hip hop. Real hip hop, not that BS. But shout out to Pooh Shiesty. Free Lil Durk. Free Diddy. Free R. Kelly, man. You telling me R. Kelly is in the penitentiary because he pissed on he was set up. Surviving Lies is what it should have been called. But the game, when you, and it's another thing, I mentioned LL. LL didn't elevate anybody, but the difference is LL was always presented as a solo act. A lot of rappers post 90s did the thing of I got my team, my crew. But the thing about having a team or crew, you either make them matter or you make them, irrelevant. So when he's saying Black Wall Street, okay, you can scream out your crew, but at some point you have to introduce your crew. He never did that. And I think that hurt him. Once again, if you're a rapper with a crew, you can extend your longevity. You can become hotter as an artist if your team is hot. But you have to showcase these people. You can't just keep screaming shit and have 30 niggas behind you wearing your logo on a t-shirt. That's cute for a Smack DVD like 2 or 3 times. But he lacked this, and I think that hurt him in the long run. And but anyway, what are your thoughts on this? Leave your thoughts in the comment section. I'm up out of here. Check out the latest videos. If you want to support the channel, or if you have a video request, you could donate to the Cash App. It's $XDN-WINS. Make sure you subscribe to my new channel, XDN Wrestling. I talk the same way, just about wrestling topics, what have you. And follow me on Instagram. That's where I'm going to start putting my freestyles, man. I'm sick of these current rappers, man. I know how to do. They're just. The Pooh Shiesty, Gucci Man Snitch, Burr. Why does he always say Burr? What, isn't he from Atlanta? Since when is it cold in Georgia? Anyway, I'm up out of here, and that is it.